All right, good. So, here's a schedule, reading schedule also. So for next time, we will do Ephesians 5, and we'll look at gender relations out of the blue. So I had to put that in there. It's very controversial text on the submission of women. So we're gonna look at that, and then we will finish with is there a hell question about hellfire. So we will study Revelation 19 to 22. So you need to focus on Revelation 19 to 22. Okay. Are you okay? Okay. All right. Good. I want to just conclude on the Beatitudes from last time, and then we'll go into the parables of today. So these texts are slightly unfamiliar to me too, actually. My specialty is not New Testament, so I'm learning with you. So as I'm studying these texts, I'm also pondering. So I had some ponderings, and I wanted to share that with you. So what I'm noticing in the Beatitudes, right, this new values, these new virtues he's coming up with, virtues of weakness. I'm realizing that Jesus is not so much subverting Judaism as he is subverting Rome, right? I think that's the target here, right? I mean, Jesus is very much in the continuation of Jewish thought. We saw the way he's quoting the Psalms throughout the Beatitudes. So he's inserting himself in the Davidic tradition, right? So there's not much, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have noticed, if you're Jewish, there's not much contradiction, right, between what Jesus is saying and what has been taught throughout the millennia in Jewish history and thought. But what he's really doing is subverting Rome. And this is important because most of the people listening to him are kind of either they hate Rome or they love Rome, but definitely they fear Rome and they see the power of Rome, right? Rome was I mean, it was spectacular. You had, I mean, this was, people certainly were in awe of Rome, and Rome seemed to be winning too, right? So what he and Rome was really the I mean, it was kind of like the number one in the world. It was kind of like, we used to be back in the day, right? So people are kind of, everyone is in a way admiring Rome, trying to imitate Rome. And Jesus is saying, no, the kingdom I'm bringing is the reversal of Rome, right? So I want to summarize just a little bit some of what he's doing. So first, reversal, right? Rome is very flashy, right? Rome, I mean, is very, the strength is visible in Rome. With the Beatitudes, right, we have this notion of the kingdom starting in the heart, right? So it's an internal, secret, hidden work, which we'll see a lot of also in the parables, right? So he's flipping, right? It's not a work. And remember, he's talking to a mixed audience. He's talking to Hellenistic Jews who love Rome, and he's talking to Jews who hate Rome. And the Jews who hate Rome, remember, we're thinking of having a Messiah who would conquer Rome, right? Who would take arms and who would be a military officer and who would conquer Rome militarily. So this was the vision that the people had of who the Messiah would be. He would be this kind of conquering power who would defeat Rome with, and trample over Rome and then establish the nation of Israel. So both are kind of working along the lines of empire, right? The Hellenistic Jews are admiring empire, and the non-Hellenistic Jews are imitating empire with their vision of the Messiah. You follow? So both are really, and Jesus is going to say, no, actually, kingdom has nothing to do with empire. It's hidden, it's secretive, it's internal, it begins there, right? And from there, you have outward transformation, right? So it's the outward transformation is coming out of the inner transformation. This is a long, right? You got to be patient for this kind of kingdom, right? You can't go in and just massacre everybody and then boom, the kingdom is there, right? This is a very slow internal thing, which then moves into the external, right? So that's the first difference between kingdom and empire, right? Second difference between kingdom and empire, I took note of empire virtues, Roman virtues. Let me jot them down. First of all, Roman virtue number one, independence, self-sufficiency, right? Autonomy, that's virtue number one. Number two, strength. Number two, coercion. This is interesting. Number three, pure justice, right? The Romans were all about justice. but it was pure justice, meaning there is no grace. If it is decreed that you made a mistake, you die, right? So the Romans actually established our, systems of laws that were very elaborate. They were all about justice, but it was a justice administered in a pure fashion, right? And then you have other Roman virtues, lack of accountability, right? Rome is never wrong. Violence, hatred, and then, of course, the suffering is seen as weakness, right? So he's flipping this, right? You can see that in the Beatitudes, he's showing a different set of virtues, which is, for example, I didn't write them down. Oh, yes. For example, need, that's not very Roman. Brokenness, that's awful. Surrender, grace, repentance, peace, suffering. Well, these are the opposite virtues, right? So he's flipping, right? He's showing you are admiring, looking to empire for deliverance, but the kingdom is working on it. It's a totally different economy, right? Okay. Good. So that's what I wanted to kind of just summarize and show that's where he's going here with the kingdom values. Now, we're going to look at the parables, and I want to talk a little bit about a lot of you question, why does he write in parables, right? Why is he so elitist? Why is he hiding the truth? So I want to give you 3 main reasons why I believe he's talking in parables, right? That way, that will answer a lot of your points. A lot of you asked the same question, right? So number 1, he's teaching about kingdom, right? You can't teach about kingdom in the Roman Empire where there's only one emperor who is God, right? So he has to go undercover here when he's talking about kingdom, lest he be misinterpreted and killed, which he eventually becomes anyways, right? So he's still trying to, do a little time teaching. So he doesn't want to be right away captured. So if he goes around saying, the kingdom of God, X, Y, and Z, right, will defeat Rome, and it's not gonna, he can't go around saying, right, that the kingdom of God is going to defeat Rome, which it's supposed to, and that, so he's trying to kind of, keep a low profile when talking about these things. He can't say explicitly what he means to say, which when we read the book of Revelation, it's all about the overturning of Rome, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, there is this notion of the kingdom of God, unlike empire, right, which is coercive, the kingdom of God is elusive. It is only available to the seeker. There's an element of openness, availability to it, of seeking that has to happen to get into this, to explore this, right? So the parables are there to kind of get us thinking. You have to dig in order to get to the meaning. You can't just sit there and get the meaning, right? You kind of have to think about it. And so it's a kind, I think one of you said that the parables are a litmus test, right? To determine who's a true seeker, who's not a true seeker, right? The true seeker will ponder the parable for days. We'll talk about the parable. We'll discuss the parable and together try to figure out the parable, right? So it's a litmus test to determine who's serious about this kingdom business, right? Jesus had no time to waste, right? So, and then the third one, of course, this is what I want to focus here. Each parable was meant to speak to every individual differently, right? That's the potential of the parable, is that each one of us will be hit by it differently, will receive a different message, a message that is relevant to where one is, right? So if you give a general teaching, you only reach 1-2 people, right? But if you give a parable, everyone's going to receive it differently, right? It's kind of like poetry. Everybody receives it differently. So he kind of wants to reach everybody at the heart of what they're struggling with. And so the parable is going to hit each one of us differently. So, so what I want to do before we get in the text, we have to be very, very practical about what this kingdom business is, right? We're talking about the kingdom, what the hell does it mean? Does it mean the second return? Does it mean heaven? No, right? For Jesus, the kingdom starts now, immediately where you are, right? So he's not talking about heaven, right? He's not talking about, heaven or hell. He's not interested in that. He's talking about in your situation, would you like to live this life the kingdom way or the empire way, right? So in other words, he's looking at whatever you're in right now, kingdom can land, right? The kingdom can come in that situation. That's how practical he is, right? He's not saying, oh, the kingdom is, whatever, heaven. So what I want you to do right now, immediately, I want you to think of a situation that you're in, which is dead end. Yes? Bad situation, no exit. You're stuck. You're captive in that situation. There's no way out. You're struggling. It's a crisis. Yes, are we there? Are you all thinking? Do you have it? I see it on your face. Yes. Do you have it? And you? Yes. Okay. Yes. No, no problems. Hilton's doing great, of course, with a name like that. It's a bad joke. Bad joke. Go ahead. Go ahead. You there? No. Also with Hilton. You're chilling. Oh, that's great. That's great. Crisis? Yes, it has to be real. Are you in a crisis? No, you're doing great. Some of you are doing great. Don't worry, it'll come. Don't worry. Save it for later, what we're gonna talk about. Take good notes. And you're good? Or in the past? No, yes, now, preferably now. You got your crisis? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, good. No, no crisis, either chilling. Okay, don't worry, don't worry. Take good notes, the song say it. Okay, now, when Jesus is talking about the kingdom, he's talking about the here and the now. That's why he says the kingdom is among us, right? So in other words, there's a possibility for each one of us, as we read these parables, to find a key, right? To find a window or a door. These parables are meant to lead us or to transform the situation and to bring kingdom wisdom into the situation, right? So that's how I want you to read this, right? All right, let's start with the parable of the sower. That parable, I have read it and read it and read it, and it's just hitting my head and bouncing off. So I really counting on you to help me see this parable in a new light, right? All of these parables, actually, I'm really gonna need you guys. Some of you already start to interpret. I really liked what some of you said. I think you were doing pretty good with interpreting, Novoa, the parables, except I can't read my writing anymore. Yes, that was good. I'm going to come back to that, this notion of the net, the way you interpreted the net. Okay, so all right, so let's look at the first parable. I'll summarize, right? Parable of the sower. The sower is someone who sows seed. This is a farmer who is sowing seed. So he says, literally he says, right, the kingdom, he doesn't even say the kingdom. He says, a farmer went to sow. Okay, sowing seed. So he's talking about the kingdom, how it's supposed to arrive, how it's supposed to grow. It's a seed, falls on different types of earth. The first one is, what is it? Oh, a path, and birds come and steal it. The second one is there's rocks. So, you know, the roots don't go deep and the plant dies. Third one is thorns, which choke up the plants. And then the last one is good soil. All right, that's the story. Go ahead. What does it mean? I mean, he gives a little bit of explanation, but
Maybe
yeah. Yeah.
to see that God planted in there in people to be good.
Okay.
The way that a father and a mother want to plant the seed in the child to do in their way.
All right, good. All right, so let's look at the seed. Good point. Let's start there. What's this seed that is planted? I'm imagining the earth is the heart based on what he was saying. So it starts with a seed and a heart. That's where the kingdom starts. That's crazy, right? Seed and heart. What's the seed? So you say, okay, the seed is a divine vision. Okay, but well, how does it translate? How else could we see the seed? Yeah.
Perspective, the seed is described as the word of God.
Okay, but be more specific. What does that mean, the word of God? Like, what does that mean? It's how does that lead to kingdom, right? And explain.
Well, there's a whole that goes into it about what the kingdom is. And,
so it's the vision of God, right? So it's a vision of God, falls on the heart, grows or not. I don't know. I mean, yes, but yes. Yes. So for sure, you can see, you know, him talking about, you know, strictly messianic prophecy, but I'm looking more practically, right? You're in a situation, you're in life. What's a seed? What? Okay, you're on the right track. Yeah.
Maybe it's like the soul, like in the beginning in Genesis, that is like the life that God breathed into you.
Okay.
That it could, like,
So that's already there. The heart is there, right?
Okay.
That's the soul. So the seed is something extra. So I'm curious. Yeah. Okay, you're on the right track. But the seed is something that grows into something, right? So it's not, it could be faith.
morality, maybe.
You guys are so good. Religious belief. Okay, let me make it very concrete. Let's pick a problem. All right, shall we pick a problem? We'll just do a problem and see how we can bring kingdom in the problem. All right, give me a problem. Doesn't have to be something you're struggling with. Just give me a bad problem. No, no, no. That's not a problem. All right, sure, world hunger. All right, world hunger. What would the seed be? So there's world hunger, right? Now he's saying the kingdom is like a seed, which goes in the heart. What is he saying? Let's imagine
Maybe we should throw alms for the poor, feed the poor, and be good to people, and
there's difference, not a seed out there, it's going in the heart. So what is the
But
seed?
he has a point in that, again, like a seed in the heart in response to that particular problem could imply that it is the goodwill of people that's gonna go on and fix the problem. It's supposed to be coming from the
Good,
heart.
so it's so what's the seed?
You have to acknowledge that there's a problem first, like there needs to be a frustration or.
Okay, you're getting there. Okay, the seed is the vision for what ought to be done. Same thing as what you're saying, the word of God, whatever, right? It's the vision for, I wish, right? I have a vision for this. I wish world hunger, blah, 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 would be different, right? Or imagine, let's be more concrete, y'all giving really abstract problems that nobody here in this class struggling with. Imagine you have a child, or you have a friend, or you have a sibling or a romantic partner, and it's not going well. The seed is the vision for what could be. Okay, shall we go with that? All right, so you have the vision, this very, very tiny, powerful vision. All right, now the seed falls on the heart. Interestingly, the heart is what will make this vision come about. The heart is where this vision will sprout and become reality. It's very powerful, right? Basically saying, before you can change anything out there, the seed has to fall in the heart, grow, and then it will, right? Okay, so let's look at the different hearts. So imagine you have this vision, you want to help world hunger, or you want to save your marriage. All right, let's pick the two. Or you want to help your kid, right? Or maybe let's take, this is something you guys most struggling with. You have a friend, he's like struggling with drugs. He's losing his soul, her soul. You want to help them. Okay, the seed, vision. Now, let's look at the different hearts. So you want to, you feel you want to do something about it. Now, what's the birds? What do they represent? So you have your vision that has been implanted by God, right? Any one of these desires where you want to do something better, that's an implant by God, right? That's a divine vision that has taken root in your heart. What do the birds represent? Who come and snatch the seed out of your heart?
Like temptation.
Explain.
So like last time we were talking about guy sins once they see another woman when they're married. So could that
So remember, the seed is just a vision, right? That God has given you this desire. You have to help that person or fix that marriage. So to take a, what does it mean? What could take away your vision? The bird is taking away the vision. What could do that? Yeah.
Maybe it's like distraction, like something that's external that's kind of coming back in.
Okay, so it could be like, the distraction though is more the thorns that they say
I'm trying to
specifically,
like
right?
relate it to like the birds in Noah's story, like the
Oh,
rest of the
okay.
stuff, but I'm trying to like,
Sure.
figure out how they relate.
Good, you could do that. Come back to me when you figured it out. Yeah.
Pursue helping that person.
Okay, very good, right? A bird could be like, this is impossible. You can't do this. Another bird, oh, it'll never work. No. Another bird, stop being so idealistic, right? Another bird, you have a lot to do. Really, there's no time for this, right? You see how the birds flying around, these intrusive thoughts telling you your vision is, ridiculous, never gonna happen. Forget about it. You can't save this marriage. You can't help this child. You can't, you'll never make it, blah, 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 right? Yes. So yeah, of course, the intrusive thoughts, right? This is the devil here in the text, right? The birds represent the kind of whatever force going against that vibrant seed, this desire of God that has fallen in your heart about this situation, right? By the way, I love this because basically saying that our desires are not evil, right? Our desires very often are divine desires that have fallen in our hearts as seeds, right? So it's a beautiful view on human desire. Okay, so first thing to do, chase the birds, right? You got to keep that vision alive. That's the first thing for the kingdom to happen. The vision, the seed must be protected from the birds. Okay, all good? Let's go to the next one. Okay, now the rocks. So just to give you, if you thought you could take out the rocks. So he says the interpretation in the text is the rocks is the troubles, you know, blah, blah, blah. And in case you thought you could remove the troubles, let's remember where this story is taking place. This is the land of Israel. What kind of land do we have there? With rocks, hundreds, thousands, rocks that will never go away. So the plants there the farmer cannot remove the rocks, but so therefore the plants have to kind of go deep and go around the rocks. And so they have to kind of like persevere and go even deep because the rocks will never go away. Okay, so what's the second thing we have to do? We have the vision, we have the desire, we want to do it. First thing is chase the birds. Second thing, now troubles come, you're trying to make your vision happen. You're going to counseling or you're trying to, you know, you're spending more time with your kid. And then all of a sudden your kid just locks up in their room and he's gone. And then, or your partner, you know, on the apps again, right? So troubles are coming, right? Now what? Now what's the temptation? First sign of trouble. Yeah. Exactly. First temptation though, talking about temptation, what's the temptation now that you're trying to make it work and it's getting worse? What's the temptation? It's not working, right? It's never gonna happen, right? And you don't even need the birds now. You're just suffering and you want out, right? So that's the rocks. And so the farmer, right? The story is like you have to become like those plants. You have to be able to persevere. The rocks will happen. If you stop with the rocks, the vision will never happen and the kingdom will never come, right? Notice how the kingdom entirely depends on us. The only thing God did was put a seed, right? So, okay, now we've overcome the rocks. Now come the thistles and the thorns. What are those? Yes, and also worries, right? They're the worries of life and the temptation of wealth. Okay, what would those represent in our situation of, and let's continue with the child, the crazy child. Okay, now what would be a thistle here? Yes. Yeah, so you could get, you could get distracted and trying to escape the situation. That's a very common thing, right? You try to escape. So I know people like this, right? They have dysfunctional families, but they're like amazing humanists, right? They have like NGOs and they're out there doing all these things and their family is just hell, right? So that's another temptation is to translate, right? Oh, I'm gonna leave this seed and just go and do something good over here because this is never gonna work, right? So that's you're trying to escape now. That's another way, right? We're trying to escape. So that's you with your partner is not working. He's on the app. So now you're gonna go speed dating. That's what you're gonna do, and you're gonna make it work, right? So then you're trying to now find another outlet, right? You're trying to avoid it. It's too painful. What's another way to think about the thorns, the worries? Speaking now of worries, in terms of worries. How can that be a problem with your seed? Yeah.
Since exasperation making you burn out, making it harder to continue pursuing.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest obstacles, right? You get scared and you get anxious and now you're paralyzed, right? So that's a thistle that we have to rip out, right? So you have your vision, you're trying to make it work, it's painful, true. It's, you know, and now it's like you're anxious that it might not pan out, it's not gonna work, and I'm never gonna make it, and now you're paralyzed and your vision is interrupted. The seed cannot grow, so you gotta get rid of the thistles, right? And then we have finally good earth, right? Now, here's the punchline, it's interesting. So we know, right? So the vision is not ours. We receive the vision. The only task we have is to fight fear, try to not escape, hang in there in the suffering, get rid of intrusive thoughts. These are some of the things we can do. But the growth of the seed, who does it depend on?
Ourselves, and that, do we take the seed in or do we reject the seed?
Good. So absolutely, there's the moment where you have to, are you going to receive the seed, meaning not allow the birds to take it out, not allow the thorns to, so that's the part of receiving. That's absolutely right. You have to receive the seed and honor the seed and work with the seed and put away all the things that go against the seed. But the growth of the seed, who does it depend on, or what does it depend on? And in that particular setting, geographical setting, what causes a seed to grow? Yeah. So just literally, what causes a seed to grow in the
Soil.
land of Israel? Okay, so you have, so obviously the soil, that's us. But then what else? The water and
Water?
Water and sun. Okay, so where does water come from in Palestine or Israel?
Right.
Rain, right? It was, they didn't have really rivers. I mean, they had, but it wasn't like the Nile. So they had no irrigation. They could not, there was no water to work with. So they had to depend on the rain, right? So it's not in their power. And the sun, right? No power. So the growth of the seed is a gift. But what we have to do is protect the seed. That's all we have to do. You protect the seed, you keep going, the growth will happen by itself. The vision will unravel by itself. It's a very powerful idea. We tend to think, oh, I used to think, oh, I have to water the seed. Okay, I still have to water. No, because what you, in that context, water was given from heavens, right? Water was rain. And it's an interesting, there's a rabbinic story which says, unlike Egypt, where people had to work for the water, in Israel, the man could fall asleep and God would provide, right? So God would provide in their sleep, right? So this notion of, again, complete surrender. So this is, now, what do you think about this? Yes, go ahead.
I think it's nature versus nurture to a certain degree.
Mhm.
Because I think that the parent, he tries to implant a good seed in the child. But sometimes outside forces cause the child to flee away from the parent or flee away from what the parent is trying to teach him into evil and into more evil things, or into more bad things.
Yes,
Parents
yes.
is trying to implant a good seed in the child, and which is what I think we're referring to here. And there's a tendency by the child to basically fight it.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
you're right. So the child who has the seed of the parent, or like us who have the seed of God, the child gets caught up with fear and with, distractions and worries and the intrusive thoughts, and never grows, right? So it's the same thing, right? Okay. Now, what do you think about this? This is interesting. This is the kingdom is happening without your help. This is what he's saying. That vision will unravel without your help. All you have to do is believe in it, keep going when it's hard, and stop worrying. What do you think? Feasible? Realistic? So it doesn't mean you don't work, right? You're moving forward, right? With your vision, you're doing whatever you need to do. But the real work is keeping away the intrusive thoughts, keep going when it's hard. Don't get caught up in anxiety, and your vision will take place. Yes.
See, this reminds me in a sense of the Garden Academy, where they were doing the test and taking care of the garden. It's like this, everything else is being provided for them, and they just had to do.
Absolutely, right? We tend to think we have to do so much work for God, right? This story is saying, no, God is doing everything. Just stay the course. Just be there. Stand your ground, right? Let me give you an example. You're all students. Anybody struggling with a class where you think you're going to fail, or dealing with, you're all so good, you're all so good. Nobody's struggling with the class. Okay. Job market here. That's a good one. Okay. You're all going to graduate, and I know you're scared. You're not going to find a job. Yes. How many of you? A few of you already have good business. You have parental business, maybe. You're good. There's some good backups there. But right, in general, it's scary. What's going to happen? What is this story saying? What is it saying about your seed, that you want to be something, you want to contribute something? What's the story telling you? Yeah.
I mean, essentially, it's what you're seeing, protect the seed and allow God to work. It will work out.
Protect the vision, and it will work out. What I'm seeing in students, what keeps people from becoming what they need to become is always this: they give up on their vision. If you keep your vision alive, you'll make it. I mean, there's stones, yes, there's rocks, but you're gonna make it. But the problem with people, before they lose the vision before even trying. People tell me, oh, I can't do this because there's no jobs in this, and I can't do that because I'm never gonna make it. And so they crush the seed when it first begins to sprout. The main obstacle you will have is giving up. That is the main obstacle. The issue is not with the seed. The seed is there, it will unravel. But what we do, we sabotage it, we give up before because we're so sure it's not going to work. You see what I'm saying? And this is in every situation, relationships, job, career, whatever. We have the seed and we don't believe in it and we give up on it. Yes.
I have a funny thing that, so funny that you mentioned this because on Tuesday I had a class before this and my professor shared an article. And it said that, AI is taking over the jobs for undergraduate students. So her main idea was to give us all a panic.
Yes.
Just the title itself and, to discuss what we think about that specific title. So me coming here now and hearing
Yep.
you.
Exactly. It is your fear that will keep you away from your destiny. It is not the world. The seed, if you protect it, will unravel by itself. Of course, you do your part, but will unravel. But it is your fear and your lack of hope, your loss of hope and your seed and your anxiety that will keep you from getting there. So I like this story. After all, right? Are you following me? Does it make sense? One person understands. Yes, a couple, right? So that's an interesting. Again, the idea is we're not used to this, that the kingdom is effortless. But here, that's what he's saying. The kingdom is effortless. All you need to do is protect the seed. That's it. You protect the seed, you believe in the seed, you persevere in the seed, the kingdom will happen, right? Remember, we're in the context of partnership with God, right? With the teachings of Jesus, it's always that. You do your part, but and then God kicks in, right? That's the idea. God is fighting our battles. That's what we learned throughout the semester. Jesus is simply continuing in that tradition of God fighting our battles. So all we have to do is stand the ground. We have to stand our ground, be there, show up in the battlefield. And then the battle is the Lord's, right? So it's the same idea. This is nothing new from what we've been doing all along on a more collective level, right? Okay, any questions or interpretations or pushbacks on this particular parable? Okay, let's go to the next one. Parable of the weeds, which I'm going to identify with the net, same thing. Okay, so here you have, this is intriguing, another garden parable. So you have a farmer is sowing seed and then an enemy comes and sows a bunch of thistles. And then it starts growing and the farmer realizes, oh no, among the wheat, there is these thistles. Let me go out and get rid of the thistles. What will happen if he does that?
You guys ready for this?
Yeah, if he goes immediately weeds the thistles before everything is out. Exactly, because the root is very weak. So if you start weeding the thistles, you're weeding out the grain. So the advice of the stories is wait until harvest time. And then actually, who does it? Who separates? I don't see here. It's the workers, right? The workers, when everything has grown, the harvesters will. So it has to grow and grow and grow. And you had a really good interpretation there. The net is the same thing. You're fishing. Wait, what's coming with the fish? Sorry.
Isn't there a parable about this too?
There's good fish and bad fish. Is that it? What?
I remember about that. There is a parable.
Is the net, right? Wait, there's bad fish and good fish. Yes. Okay, bad fish and good fish. And then it's saying in the end of next, what is this idea here? So now let's analyze okay, we know who the enemy is, right? So what are the weeds? What's the good grade? What are the good and bad fish? What do they represent? Yeah.
Good and bad people.
Okay, very good, right? Good and bad people, and then and what is the tendency in our human nature? Yes.
You saying that I have heard well, my translation says that we end up hard, the TARES.
Yeah.
Again, so it's hard to represent worries similar to the weeds. So it attaches itself and continues to grow as the weed grows.
So we have to kind of live with the anxiety.
Not really, because the tars will be removed.
Okay, so but still there's this I mean I like it. So how do you then how do you live with the anxiety? Like, is it healthy to live with, how would you envision?
He's like, okay, live with that, but yeah, when things first gather together, the tires and bind them to bundles.
Mhm.
So it's well, just from my understanding, I guess the TARs at some point will be removed.
Okay, so you don't have to remove, I'm seeing where you're going with that. Okay, so you're struggling with anxiety or with whatever, and you don't have to fight it. It will be removed in that sense. It's not something you can fight. Oh, I like that. Yes, yes, yes. So so whatever problem you're dealing with, right, in the growth, right, of your kingdom, whatever problem is going on, not your battle. Is that one way to see it?
Mm.
Yeah, that works. Okay, okay, not sure. It will eventually be taken care of, right? It's still in the notion of God fighting the battle. So there are battles, pick your battles. You don't have to fight every battle, right? Okay, good, good. What else? What else are the weeds and you were saying good and bad people, right?
So I think it's, I mean, we talked about Psalm 37 last class. I think he's referencing Psalm 37 again, where King David talked like in the famous passage where like he's comforting the people that it's like, oh, don't, you may ask, why do the wicked prosper, but don't worry, like yet a little bit, the wicked won't be, like the wicked man is not, like you'll reflect upon his place and he won't be there. And so he's telling them that soon, like the wicked will be destroyed and the righteous will be redeemed. And so it's kind of the same idea where it's a recognition that they're not being separated out now, and it's comforting and telling them that they need to be separated out in the future.
Okay, so the idea that don't fight your enemies, right? This will be taken care of, right? So no need to be over here. Just wait it out. I think you were saying something like, let me see what you said. Yeah, wait, say it again. Say it again. We try to fix things too soon, right? It's kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
You remember?
Something like that.
Right? We're trying to fix things ahead of time. We're trying to make things work. Here's an interesting thing that I've noticed, right? In relationships, you try to fix relationships, right? And sometimes the goal is just to experience that phase, right? Imagine you're dealing with a sibling and you're like, there's like a cold spell, right? And here you are trying to fix it. And sometimes you need to go through that cold spell. And in time, right, things get healed, or with a friend, right? So too often we're trying to fix when we should just wait it out, right? So again, the virtue of waiting out here is wise, right? There's an element of wisdom. And again, it's not in, you don't have to do this, right? So I like that. Now there's a deeper meaning here also with regards to the way that the church or the synagogue or the mosque have treated evil people. What has been the approach with heretics and sinners? What has the church and synagogue and mosque done when it comes to heretics and sinners, wicked people? Yes, exactly, right? There's a tendency to punish, to excommunicate, to exclude. Jesus is saying, yeah, it's not your job. Now that's interesting, because I'm looking I'll look in context of the church, which is what I'm more familiar with in terms of excommunication. There's this whole idea, okay, if you're gay, right, you can't be in a position of, you can come and sit in the back, don't touch each other. We don't want to know. You can sit in the back of the church, and then you cannot have a position of responsibility, right, because you're a sinner. Now, what is the text saying here? It's interesting. It's crazy. Absolutely insane. What's he saying? Well,
It's suggesting to not even acknowledge any sort of difference in separation.
yeah, we don't know who's wicked, who's not wicked. So let's all do this, right? So who are you to judge who is wicked, who is not, and that this sin is more wicked than that sin, right? So this is very powerful, which has not been followed by any of the religions, right? There's always in the religion this kind of moral, you're wicked over here, you're good. Jesus is saying, we don't know, you cannot know because you yourself are wicked. How can you judge who is wicked when you yourself are wicked? So everybody together, I will decide, right? But in the meantime, everybody together. This is a very, very, very subversive idea regarding church policy, and maybe also synagogue and mosque policy.
2 points, not disagreeing or agreeing with you, but like going back to Matthew 5, I believe, where it says, well, I somewhat agree with you when you say that we can't say whoever's wicked or not because we are wicked, but this also points out that, how can we go to someone and say, let me take the splinter out of your
Yeah.
foot.
Yes.
So I guess there he could be saying that, well, he does say, first remove the plank from your eye and then help someone else remove it from theirs.
Yeah.
So I guess in that sense, just acknowledge your wickedness and help someone else acknowledge theirs as well and overcome that. But about the excommunication as well, I remember Paul writes about there only being one reason that someone could be excommunicated, and that's if someone is deliberately in sin. You bring them. There's a whole stage of where you have to bring them through. You talk to them, you bring them to someone else, and if they don't acknowledge it, then you don't.
That's good. And that's Paul, right? So we have to decide as Christians, who are we going to follow? Jesus or Paul? That's a question I'm asking the church, right? Because yeah, we follow Paul for sure. He has great guidelines, right? But this text, in my view, is contradicting Paul. There's no excommunication possible here when it says you cannot separate. Excommunication is a separation. So we have to ask ourselves as Christians who we're going to follow. Are we going to follow the Son of God, or are we going to follow disciple of the Son of God, right? So that's a challenge I would bring to the church on that point, right? Because here I hope you see that there is a contradiction, right? So, and we have to decide who is the higher authority, right? That would be my understanding, at least, of these texts. Good. Anything else? Very, very crazy text. Okay, we have about 10 minutes. Let's go to, okay, this is a nice one. Do I have it? Ah, yes. Mustard seed. This is a good one. Mustard seed and yeast. Okay, so here we have a tiny seed, the tiniest in the world. You plant it, it becomes the biggest tree. And then birds can live in it and so forth. And then the yeast is also very small bacteria, right? Which can, when you put it in the bread, transforms the bread into something completely different. All right, what's he saying here about the kingdom? What can we learn here about the kingdom? How does the kingdom begin?
Where are we? Matthew 15?
Matthew 13, verse, where is it? Where's the mustard seed? Verse, I can't read, 31, verse 31. All right. So how does it begin? So first of all, both the mustard seed goes in the earth and the yeast goes in the bread. So we have the notion of going inside, right? So it's hidden, it's internal again, right? We have the notion of internality. Now, what does it mean? How do you understand the mustard seed? I think, Nicolopoulos, you understood it, I think, as faith, right? Was that you?
Yeah.
Tiny bit of faith is enough, right? Okay, I like that. How else could we understand this notion of the kingdom starting small, tiny seed and then poof, exploding into something amazing?
Said
Mm.
God, seed, the small mustard seed that represents faith, and you don't have to.
Ooh, I like that.
Thing,
I like that.
have to
Yes.
put, work in, but it's God who is growing that faith.
Okay, very good. You give what you have, which is nothing, and then the growth happens outside of, but you have to have the courage to. So let's imagine this. You want to end world hunger. So, and you're thinking already, probably a bird just popped on your shoulder now saying, oh, that's unrealistic, right? So the idea would be you start with a tiny little project. As you do this project by itself will begin to multiply, right? And this is not right, but you shouldn't be afraid to start with a tiny little project, like a tiny soup kitchen in your backyard, right? As you begin to take the steps of the tiny little project, it will snowball by itself, right? But we still have to take the step, right? This is not pure passivity, right? We have to acknowledge there is a step we have to take. But then it kind of snowballs, right? So yes, start small, tiny, you don't have anything, take what you have and do something with it, and poof, it will blow up, right? Anyway, so I like that. And it can also be in terms of spiritual virtue, like faith, right? Very good. Another way to interpret this tiny little seed that you working with here, that explodes. Another way to interpret that, or the yeast. Yeah. And then Akbashem.
Again, I just want to connect it to another passage about yeast, which could represent the best explanation is like the things that you hear and the things that you choose to things you choose to let sit in your heart. Because Jesus also says, beware of the Pharisees, because certain things that you could hear could influence your thought, cause you to stray from what you wanted to. Like if we're gonna go to the case of world hunger, you could hear something from someone that you might believe to be helpful, but it could lead you to go astray from what you initially wanted to do.
Okay, so yeah, but here remember, there's a positive sense of the yeast here, right? So yeah, there are other stories where he's using it negatively, but here it's a positive thing, right? So Agbashev, go ahead.
Presentation about glory God, how like with miracles are just great.
So what's the
But the seed is like something that doesn't seem to be something that is large will turn out large and planted within the soul. So
okay, give an example.
uh, doing the good deed, for instance,
Mhm.
right? Something as small as doing good
Mm.
deed, but the
I like that.
a causal thing that you know, like you do good deed for this person and the person will do good deed for another.
You got
person,
it.
And you have like
That's the idea. Very good. Right, Kingdom of Heaven, you start one little good deed, looks like nothing, but you don't know what happens, right? How it snowballs. So this is like the invitation is take a tiny step, right? In whatever direction, take that step and then watch but we have to start with something, and usually it's nothing, right? Yes, good.
in talking about yeast, I immediately thought of olive, like when you make olive and you put in yeast is used to symbolize growth, expansion in the beginning. Like every single ingredient has like a different thing. Yeast, because it gives that growing agent, it means to have that growing connection with God and hopefully start a new beginning.
Okay, good. And I want to add something. How many of you have ever made bread with yeast? Yeah, okay, yes. Now, what happens when you get impatient and you open the oven as it's like, exactly. So it's rising in the oven happily, and then you want to check how it's doing. So you open the oven and right, because you've interrupted, right? So this is also the idea of we can't be impatient. We sometimes have to wait for the process to kind of happen, right? I remember there was we all know the situation in Iran, right? And there was a lawyer who came from Iran to visit the States and to talk a little bit to us about the situation, women, and so forth. And she said something really interesting. She said, please do not try to help us. Please do not intervene, right? We'll get there in time, right? So she was in that idea of the yeast, right? Please don't come and forcefully trample over our country and try to fix it and establish whatever, like you always do everywhere, right? She was saying, don't do that. We're getting there, right? We're growing in that direction. So social change, right? Jesus is also talking about social change. Social change is a very slow process, which we don't need to rush and make happen, right? It will happen over time if we are taking these small steps, right? And often we rush and we destroy the bread, right? Very good. Good. Last one, hidden treasure, hidden pearl. So here, just get it over with. You want to take it? Okay. Thank you. Okay, good. So we have a story of somebody is visiting a field, discovers a hidden treasure, hides it, and then says, I'm going to buy this field for nothing because there's a treasure. Is that the story? I think I'm telling it right, right?
Give everything they have.
Oh, sorry, they get everything they have to buy the field and because of the treasure. And then same idea, there's a pearl at the bottom of the ocean. And what happens to the pearl? He also sells everything to buy this pearl. Okay. All right, what does this tell us about kingdom? Accomplishing the kingdom's work. Mhm.
Do you realize there's something that you truly want? So you can see that it's successful.
Good. Let's go back to that seed as that desire that has been planted in you, that vision for yourself, that vision for your destiny. Okay, everybody see it? Are you all seeing your destiny right now? The little seed that you have? Can't do it if you don't give it your whole soul and heart. You cannot do this half-heartedly. Either you're wholly into it, no other option, it's this or nothing, or you're going to dabble for the rest of your life into little different stuff, right? So there's an element of sacrifice. There's an element of passion where you can't, how many of you have ever gone rock climbing where it's somewhat dangerous? I got like pulled into it. It was terrible. It was this guy who was he was pretty good. And he brought me and I was naive and I went and it was I swear by God, there was a moment where it was like you had to reach, there were big holes on a big facade and you had to reach and pull yourself each hole and there was nothing if you fell, you died. So I was there and I couldn't reach the damn hole because I was too small. The guy had to pull me, like, I don't know where he got the strength. He was pulling me up this facade. Everywhere is emptiness. Thank goodness there was fog, because if I had seen it, I would have passed out. So, and I remember thinking, if only I could turn back, why am I here? And I couldn't, because it was so dangerous. You couldn't turn back, you had to keep going. That's what he's talking about here. You have to get to a point that there is no return. Either you finish or you don't, or you die, right? So that's the kind of passion. The issue with us, again, we get so scared and discouraged, and we're such, pussies when it comes to our own destiny, right? We give up before even starting. How many people I know that give up before even starting? Oh, there's no jobs. Of course there is. Why wouldn't a job come to you, right? So this is the idea of, you got to throw your whole being. You got to take that risk and keep going, and then you'll make it, right? This is a kind of, it takes all of you to save a marriage, or to save a child, or to save a friendship, or to save your destiny. It takes all of you. You can't do this half-heartedly with plan B and plan C and plan D, right? Very nice, interesting story too. Anything else before we conclude? 4 minutes. Good. Nothing? Okay, so these are stories. We said a few words here and there, but they need to be, the way they work is they have to sit in your mind and continue to grow, right? That's what he meant them to be. He meant those stories to kind of stick with your head, stick in your head, float around in your head. And little by little, one day you get, oh, that's what this means, right? So they're supposed to be simmered, right? They're supposed to be, what do cows do? When they digest, what's the word? Regurgitate, or they're supposed to be kind of, always, pondered. So I'll leave you with those stories. Maybe they will begin to have new significations in time, but this was kind of a little bit of a beginning. So in conclusion, right, main idea to remember: a religion will be tempted, right, to impose Christian, Jewish, Muslim virtues with the tools of empire, right? What we're learning here is a different approach. Slow, internal, secretive, takes time, no results, takes perseverance. It's a matter of the heart rather than a matter of out there. But that's what he's saying is going to get to that outcome, right? So it's and again, for those of you who think this is unrealistic, I point you again to Martin Luther King, to Gandhi, who did exactly this. They followed this blueprint, and that's how they made it, right? And it took time, and it was slow, and it was painful, and it started from the internal, and it persevered, and it made it, right? So these are the virtues, the Beatitudes. This is a completely upside down way of seeing the world, right? But that's the way that kingdom, the only way that kingdom can come, right? According to this text. Okay. Next time, please read Ephesians 5, gender relations, one of the most contentious texts in Christianity about the submission of women. So we're going to do a little, how shall I put it, parentheses. And then we will study hell on Thursday, Revelation 19 to 21, 22, sorry, 19 to 22. All right, I will see you all next week.
Ready?